Hello, and welcome back to more Manufactoria 2022. We have done a lot of these puzzles in the hub, and we're just gonna keep on going and finish it out. Maybe not this episode, but probably in the next two, assuming everything goes as it has been. But we could always get a tricky problem. But let's see, we have aimbot. I'd always been dimly aware of esports, but I was unaware of how big they'd become until Evan got very deep into watching tournament streams. Watching over its tiny shoulders gave me an idea. Couldn't we build our own competitor who could out-aim a robot? Yeah, I mean, nothing in the rulebook says a robot can't play CSGO? Maybe? There probably is something in the rulebook. Keep removing blue from the end of the tape until there are none there, then produce. Okay, so we can see it says keep removing blue from the end, but it really just means remove all the blue from the end. And it's a little bit awkward because if we could just like reverse everything, then it would be easy, but we don't know when we're at the end. So I think the easiest thing to do here, even though it's inefficient, is just to remove one blue from the end each loop until we see that we've ended with a red. So for example, on this one, it currently ends with two blues. We'll do a loop, take off a blue so it ends with one blue, do a loop, take off a blue so it ends at this red, do a loop, see that it ends in red, and finish. So, as usual, we need to have something to mark where the end is. And then we will need to filter out. Okay, so we're going to need to do that pattern of what is the last thing I've seen. Is it red or is it blue? So if we go and the first thing we've seen is blue, and that's also the last thing we've seen. So if we see another blue, then we need to write back from the first blue, and if we see another red, we'll also need to write back. So let's give myself a little bit more space, move both of these out just a bit, and so we'll need to, this blue will need to come over to the red, and the reds will need to come over to the blues. Okay. Let's see. Well. So the deal is we only need to wait for the blues. Like the reds, we can just immediately write a red every time we see it. So there's a bit of a color asymmetry this time. And this blue needs to come back in to this side to see whether or not it's the last thing. So we will pass this blue here, and this will need to come back into the red version because red was the last thing we saw. So turn this, and I guess we'll just go up through here. And that should get us to the point where this will tell us what the last symbol is. And also delete it if it's a blue. I think that's the wrong color. I put down a yellow instead of a green. I have some trouble with that because I am a little bit colorblind. So, alright, let's test this out. I think we're going to need to somehow come back up at the end and feed it into here. But let's just see how this looks. So ideally this will cut off. This ends in 2 blues, so ideally it will fall on the floor here and only have 1 blue if this section of the components is running correctly. Okay, so we cycle through the red, cycle through another red. Have seen a blue, don't know if it's the last blue, so we don't write it yet. See a red, so we know it's not the last blue, so now we can write it. And then we've seen a red, so we can immediately write that. Oh, nope, that's gonna just put in an extra red there. If it comes through here, we see this red, and then we go back to another red. So I'll just replace that with a conveyor belt. So as we get back to where we just were, come back to where red, blue, red, blue, red here, which is what we started with, so that part's right. But now we just want to remove the last blue. So that removed 1, but we don't know if that's the last one yet. We see another one, so we know the previous one wasn't last. We need to write that back in. And now, yeah, so we started with 2 excess blues and we have 1. So now we need to find a way to bring this back to the start so that we can do it again. Which shouldn't be too difficult because I gave myself, I wasn't super concerned with space, so I should just be able to come up this way. I'll just put it in the green writer. And, well, I mean, it's easy enough just to move this parts down and make it a little bit more condensed. And this should drop here, I think. And the only question is, what do you do if you get a blank tape now? So, since we have that extra space, might as well just make use of it. This red one goes here. Alright, this part can just move down. And if we make this a green filter, that should be good. Oh, and this red needs to go to that writer, so we can't actually move this down. We need to add extra conveyor belts here. Okay, let's see if this works for the test. So we have 2 blues on the end. This should just go through the same thing as everything before. And come through here, has 1 blue on the end. Come through here, has 0 blues on the end. And then this ends in a red. And it was handled correctly. So, let's see if this works for everything. Awesome! Achievement unlocked, Recursed. Okay, yeah, I guess that was recursive. I feel like we've had recursive ones before, but let's see. Our robo-gamers were banned from every tournament by very short-sighted organizers. I had no choice but to organize tournaments of my own. They were expensive, but well worth it. My robots were the future, and no one could be allowed to stop that. What is then and now? I don't know what these buttons mean. Oh. Okay, you can go to the original, like, explanation. Because there's 2 text boxes for every level. I hadn't noticed that before. Okay, so... yeah, I think I explained that as I was going. Just if it ends in a blue, you take it off. And you keep doing that until it ends in a red. Cool. Let's see. I have 3 I can do now. They're all equally complex, apparently. Tell you what, I'm gonna try doing these top 2. And then, if that takes us to time for the episode, that will be good to get started on this. We'll see how long these take. So game designer has what? Blues become red? Let's see. We built robots that played games, but those games were old school, designed by and for humans. We need games designed for robots to play, taking advantage of their superhuman reflexes and recall. Who could understand that better than the robots themselves? Okay. For each blue, add 1 red to the end of the tape, then produce everything? Ew. Okay, that is tricky. I'm wondering if we actually might need to use the yellow for this. Let me make sure I understand. So if we have a blue, we need to add a red. However, if we... yeah, and if we end in a red... well, we can end in a red. It's just what I was checking. Okay. So what I'm thinking is that we need to... well, we can go through each cycle, and for each blue, we can add a red to the end of the tape. However, when we see the first blue, we're not going to know how many additional blues there are. So we're, and when we come, if we do that and we come back through again, we don't want to count that same blue again. So for example, if we had something like red, blue, blue, red, initially, well, I'll just do red, blue, blue, that'll be clear. So we'll want to go through and we say, oh, we see this blue, so we have to remember that we'll write a red, but we don't know if there's an additional blue in there or not. So if we're just doing 1 red at a time and we come back through a second time, we don't want to count that first blue again. So I think we're going to need to use like the green separator trick to know where the end of the tape is, and then have like a yellow marker to know how far through the tape we've processed. Yeah. So that makes sense to me. So I'm just gonna start going down that path. Okay. So if we start with a green and a yellow, oh no, we'll start with a green, and that will be at the end. And usually we would start our tape with a yellow at the beginning, but we can't, or like we write it onto the end. So okay, we will, the first time we see a blue, I think we'll write a yellow to it. So I'm going to give myself some space because I know I'm going to have to do some more processing with the blues. But the idea will be reds, we'll just write reds. For blues, we are going to, for the first blue, we're going to write a yellow and, no, we're going to write a blue then a yellow so that we know we've already processed it when we come back through. Sorry, no, a yellow, yes, a blue then a yellow. And then for everything else, after that point, we're just trying to get back to the start. So we add red and blue writers and we cycle through until we get to the end of the tape. Okay, and at that point, we need to start the process over again. And we have some things we haven't handled yet. Like, how do we actually make use of the fact that we have this yellow marker? But let's just check how well this first part works. So red, blue, blue. And my idea is I want to process the first blue, add a red onto the back, and then input a yellow to indicate that I've processed the first blue. So we have a green to mark where the end of the tape is. We cycle through the reds until we see the first blue. We still want to keep the blue, so we add it onto the back, but then we add a yellow marker. And then we cycle through everything else, consume the green. And then we'll need to actually add the red onto the back. Okay, so after we get through this, yeah, so we go from red, blue, blue, and then we get to this spot where we've processed one yellow, or we've processed one blue. We know we've processed this, and then we've added a single red to the back. Okay, so once we get back here, we shouldn't process anything until we see a yellow. Okay, so let's let's just add this, which is a red, blue, yellow, and we will just cycle through the reds and blues until we see a yellow, and that will let us know we don't need to process anything. And then this, we'll need to figure out when we actually need to stop, which might be it comes through here. Okay, so red, blue, blue, we go through, oh boy. Okay, we kind of need to bypass this the first time, but not in later runs. So this was the thing I was saying at the beginning, where you can't really add a yellow onto the beginning to start. Unless you wanted to cycle through everything at the very beginning. Which, I mean, it's about the same. So we'll just have to start in a different spot. We could potentially... Why is this still highlighted? Okay. Okay. So because we can't add a yellow dot at the beginning of the string, we'll pretend like we had just processed it at the first run. We have red, blue, blue, and we need to actually feed it to the machine. So after one cycle, we've processed the first blue, added a red. We mark where the end of the string is. We go through until we've seen the yellow, adding everything in front of it to the back, and then go until we see another blue, and add the yellow to mark that we've processed that one. So now we've processed two blues, and we have the two reds. So if we process this... Okay, so at this point we've processed all the blues. We don't know it yet though. We cycle through until we see the yellow, and then we get only the reds, and we never see a blue. So we should know that we're done at that point if we just delete the green that we had and drop it in here. I'm sure there's an edge case I'm missing, but I think, yeah. So this robot worked correctly. So let's just run everything, and it's probably like a really simple case if I'm missing something. Awesome. So that was a little bit trickier, but well, let me read what happened. Let's see. My robot game designers ran circles around their underpaid, overworked human competitors. Before long, only a few obscure, easily ignored indie developers remained to compete with me. There was just one problem. I kept catching Evan slacking off playing our games. This is not what I paid Evan for. Not that it actually had a salary, of course. So they're making a robot society now, I guess, because there's enough robots that they need leisure activities. So maybe there won't be a uprising. It will just be robots replacing humans or something. Okay, so yeah. So just as I described before, we add a green to the end. We process until we see the first blue. Come back to the start, add a green to the end, and then at this point we check for the first blue after everything we've already processed, which is marked with the yellow. So we go until we see a yellow, and then we go until we see the first blue, write that, mark after it that we're done with that blue, and repeat. And then we go, and on the last cycle, when we've marked everything after that blue, we only have reds, so we never get onto this path, and we just drop it in the success tube. Cool. So So that was an interesting twist on it. Alright, this might be a good time to cut it off. I kind of want to just see what the problem is for CaddyBot, and probably won't actually try to complete it though. Let's see. I've been moving in more sophisticated social circles lately on the rare occasions I left the factory, and it had become clear I was expected to know how to golf. That meant I needed to practice, and that meant I needed a caddy. I certainly didn't have time to learn the difference between a driver and 9-iron myself. I feel like that's a joke that I don't understand. I know what a driver is, and like a 9-iron's also a golf club. I just don't know exactly when you use a 9-iron. Move all red after all blue, then produce. Okay. I'm thinking of, there's like sorting algorithms, and I'm thinking kind of like, I think it's called bubble swap, where you just swap 2 consecutive ones until you're done. And it's kind of inefficient, but I'm thinking like if every time through, when you see a blue followed by a red, you swap the order of those two, or I'm sorry, a red followed by a blue, then you'll have fewer and fewer things in the wrong spot until you get to the end. So that's how I'm thinking of approaching this one, but I think we are at a good point to cut off this episode, so I will leave that for next time. Alright, thanks for watching. See ya. Bye.